Joining us now is the host of the DukeCT Lounge, Charles Thomas, regular guest on Rowdy Live and the like. Welcome once again.
Hey, how y'all people?
So, what we want to talk about here is last week, of course, was the season premiere of the reboot of the XFL, Vince McMahon's professional football pet project. And obviously, a lot of stuff going. We wanted to talk about it last week, of course, my audio issues and everything, and I finally figured out how to do this. But I definitely want to get your take on this because you were definitely one of those who were watching the games, especially at least last week. Full disclosure,
Oh
I
yeah,
was not, but I was following people's social media and the like. So I definitely wanted to get people's someone's take on at least the startup of this new XFL.
what I've seen is really good, and it helps that they actually waited this time and got the right people into these positions. And it just looks like it's some like wow, they actually look well. Even the good teams are bad. They look competent, and everything is going pretty much well. When I watched the games and the stuff I did see,
Yeah,
um,
one thing
um,
you point out here is the fact that they did give it time to develop. When I did my own TV trash video on the original XFL, that's something I definitely pointed out back then. Is when the first league was launched back in the year 2000, 2001 actually, if memory serves me actually correctly, they
oh yeah,
definitely did rush into it. It seemed like it seemed like especially Vince McMahon was wanting to strike as quickly as possible at a time when, admittedly, the NFL was going through some publicity difficulties at the time. We'll talk more about what those differences was a bit later on, but it looks like there's a similar situation now. Only one, the criticisms are slightly different from the NFL, which I'll talk about in a bit. And also, like you said, they gave it at least time to build the league correctly. It looks like for the most part.
oh yeah. The one thing I did like about the XFL is that there's actually consistent. Um, Everything seems a lot more consistent. The rules and all these other, uh, regardless, it seems the same, but they do things a lot more different. The pace of the games is a lot quicker. The way they did, for example, kickoff returns and also the way you score extra points. I think that was the best type of way to I think the way they did it was actually to me the best thing they could. I think they did a pretty good job of doing this stuff here, especially week
You
one.
bring up two issues here that really that definitely crossed my mind. Now again, I wasn't watching the games the past weekend, even though yes, there is an XFL team here in Dallas Fort Worth, and I'll talk more about that in a bit as well, perhaps. But I was watching, checking up on social media during the games, and the general consensus I seem to get from a lot of people who are watching these games is that the XFL games are going at a much faster pace than especially the NFL. It seems to go more fluidly. That's some things that I think definitely is a big concern, not just with the NFL actually, but also in like the big three major American sports in general. I think that's a big issue, especially with younger viewers that might be getting turned off to those today's sports. The other thing you brought up with, and this was actually something that the more I looked at it, is the reason why, like I said, I haven't watched any games yet. I wasn't sure if I was going to, even with where the Dallas Renegades currently play. More on that later. But if there's one thing that made me think that maybe I'll give this league and this sport a try, because full disclosure again, I am not a huge fan of American football. I've watched some high school, some college games in my time. Main reason I watched the sport at that level was for the marching bands more than anything else. I've never been, as much of a major sports guy as I've been for the past 25 years, I've never attended a National Football League game in my life, have no desire to, but I might be willing to check out an XFL game just for the fact of what I heard about these rule changes, especially in regards to the kickoffs. There's been a lot of talk over the past 10, 20 years at the football level, especially the NFL, at supposedly how dangerous kickoffs are. A lot of injuries taking place in there, and it's gone to a lot of pundits and some fans advocating for the abolishment of kickoffs altogether. The XFL rather, did not do that. I'm looking at the Wikipedia article right now is to say what the differences and the changes are, and it says that, well, the spot of the kickoff is at the 30-yard line as opposed to the 35-yard line, but the main thing is that the members of the kicking team line up at the 35-yard line, and the other team must line up at their 30-yard line, and none of those people at the lines can move until the ball is either caught or 3 seconds after it hits the ground. Whatever the case is, it does seem like these are some moves that might actually make the kickoffs themselves more safer, which I think is a good thing as opposed to abolishing it, because one thing I will say, and maybe you might agree with me on this, is that running a kickoff or punt return, being ran all the way back for a touchdown, is still perhaps one of the most exciting plays in the entire game.
Oh yeah, it is one of the most exciting. You don't know what's going to happen. That's sort of thing at the beginning, like, okay, the kickoff comes in, and the team can come in and score, and it can change the outcome. In fact, I remember there was one NFL game, you had both teams kickoffs, they scored, like, from the kickoff, and really just said, okay, this is what the pace is and such, you know?
Yeah.
And plays important, the field position, and everything else, so...
And one thing, everyone talks about the supposed dangers of kickoffs and why they probably should get rid of them. I keep thinking back to this one interview I heard on the radio some years back. It was 10, 15 years or so ago, but there was some like old school football coach on one of those national radio shows talking about this issue, and he said something that just stuck with me forever. He said, the problem is not kickoffs. The problem is nobody knows how to tackle. It's like,
oh yeah,
everyone is so fundamentally
you see everyone's
deficient.
doing that big hits.
Exactly.
The big hits.
And I'll give you another example of that. Like, back when I was working at Domino's Pizza, if you work in pizza delivery and food delivery and what sort, you work during the Super Bowl. So I was working there that one day, but also, just for the record, if you're working there, at least at Domino's, more often than not, the store manager will wheel in a TV into the store for the employees to watch the games while they're not on delivery and whatnot. What I'm getting to is there was one year, I think it was the Super Bowl, where the Giants beat the Patriots the second time, the game that was in Indianapolis, if memory serves me correctly. But like I said, there was me and this one fellow driver who himself had actually played football in his time. And he's standing there watching the game on TV, and keep in mind, this is the Super Bowl. This is supposedly the matchup of the two best professional American football teams in the entire world, and this coworker of mine is watching the TV and saying, nobody's trying to tackle. Everyone's just standing around looking to deliver the big hit. That really hit to me. So, like I said,
Yeah, I saw that to me when I used to see, guys like, LeVar Arrington, all this, like, and Sean Taylor, Redskin players, who just delivered that huge hit and such. And that got people watching. It got people into, like, to this stuff, like ESPN, the Sports Center, top 10 hits, all that type of stuff. And that's the thing. It gets attention, and more attention you get, the more big hits you do, the big hits, more money, and more that sort of thing. It's that type of risk and reward, and that is probably one of the reasons why people are getting hurt all. And besides, the helmets don't really help either, because you use that helmet as a launching thing. And as like a missile, and bam.
Well, absolutely. And yeah, that's it. So obviously we're only one week into this thing. Actually, probably 2 weeks by the time this interview gets broadcast on Rowdy Live. But already some speculations going on by people online. I think 5 Point Videos already did a bit on this, as I haven't actually caught it yet. But saying, like, how long is it going to be until this XFL folds up shop? Now, there's different things. Of course, they've got multiple TV contracts, more probably from multiple networks, more than they had last time, if memory serves me correctly. But
Oh yeah, it's ABC and all these type of stuff.
yeah, do
Which,
they
by the way,
have you think they have the resources and the backing? The people who are backing them now will have the patience to perhaps let this thing get 2 or 3 seasons at least to see if it actually can hold together?
I hope so. I think that if you look the response, there is an audience there for spring football, and I think the way they did it here, especially when you look at the way they when I looked at the way the game is played, it's it's like they really learned their lesson from last time. They really learned it. They said, okay, we're not going to do much of the stuff like the gimmicks or whatever. I don't think you're going to see Vince McMahon leading a cameraman into a woman's bathroom anytime soon, a woman's locker room. But I think they've learned their lessons and they're going to try to keep it as, not as into the wrestling as much as possible.
I think you bring up a good point there. I think that in 2001, that's what I was getting to talk about eventually, is that in 2001, one of the biggest criticisms of the NFL at the time was that it was getting way too boring. They weren't allowing characters or personalities. They wanted to be very milquetoast and mundane to appease Madison Avenue. I think Vince McMahon looked at that back then and thought, okay, we make something that just goes over the top in characters, like what was going on in professional wrestling at that time. Maybe we can make that work. However, I think he misjudged how much style over substance wasn't going to work there. Putting a hot tub with strippers inside the football stadium was not going to work in his way. It's a different situation now, because I think the biggest complaint now about the NFL is how unsafe it's getting. How much there's too much. The players are kind of getting away with too much on the field. There's too many injuries going on. It's much more excessively violent, ironically. And I think that this time the XFL is looking at it and saying, rather than just abolish things like the kickoffs, let's find a way to make this game safer and also faster paced still, because that's the other thing. Like I said, that I think people are getting really, really tired of games being dragged out longer and longer and longer. If anything else, just at the behest of television networks to air more commercials. That might be a difficult thing in trying to rein in that over the TV networks.
Oh, yeah,
but if it can work.
Oh yes. It's the thing is, with that, I mean, you can look at, for example, another sport, which I'm getting more into, hockey. That is a fast-paced, highly exciting game with its issue with fighting. Whatever.
And the very thing, it's like I said.
But the
what
problem
I've noticed,
is it doesn't get an audience. It can't get an audience because some people say the pace is too fast. It doesn't allow people to slow down. And with this, I think it has a healthy medium. Because yes, you have a faster paced game, but you still have to go huddle and all this type of stuff. It can get people to breathe, and you can push some of your commercial stuff there. It's a nice balance.
Yeah, let's look into the differences in the clock here. Like I've got looking up here now. The difference in the clock change that says that the clock runs continuously in the XFL outside of the 2-minute warning, at which point it goes back to the normal clock stoppages in the time of football. I don't know if I would do what's or not, but if the majority of the game is still continuously running, that is still going to help things. Also, the fact that teams are given only 2 timeouts per half instead of 3 in all other levels of football, that helps more than anything, because that reduces the ability of what I call overcoaching, which I say is a big problem in all of the sports. I will say this. If there's one thing that concerns me about the future of this league being able to sustain itself, it's in a situation of facilities. Some, in cases, it may or may not be as bad as possible. Like, I know the team in your area, the DC Defenders, they parlay in, I believe, the soccer stadium for your MLS club, DC United, which I don't think is going anywhere. And
no, it's a good. By the way, DC United, probably the most successful team sport in DC. well, because before the
That's
national.
another thing. I'm willing to bet us. For what it's worth, I'm willing to bet an area. The other one, the concern I had about the XFL is, were they putting too many teams in already established NFL markets? Like, I would not have been in
Oh,
favor of them putting a franchise here in DFW. I thought it should have gone to San Antonio, which doesn't have NFL at all. The best thing they've got there is UT college football 30 miles up north. However, I will say this. In your case, I will say uh, putting in a place like DC could work, just for the fact that I know for certain a lot of people in the district are probably very, very tired of just how horrible the NFL team in that area has been over the past 20
oh, Dan
years.
Snyder. It's funny how even in lean times in the DC area, they have never lost this. It was always a Redskin town. It has been always been there. How good anything else, Orioles, Ravens, Nationals, Capitals being consistent. It was always a Redskin town. But over the course of his ownership, in the past 20 years, he has basically his organization, Dan Snyder, his whole way, has pushed, alienated, and just poisoned the well here. It is quite simply everyone just despises this team.
And that's
They are
amazing for me to
people.
hear, because it does, because almost when you look at it, this past 20, 25 years or so, the Redskins and the Cowboys have had almost the exact same level of lack of success whatsoever. And yet, up here at DFW, the Cowboys still have a firm hold on this town. People still kiss Jerry Jones's ass all the time. And that's why, to
Well,
me, that's one reason why I'm still not 100% sure another pro football team could work here in DFW. The other reason is, which I was wanting to get to eventually, is the Dallas Renegades, as they're called here, the XFL club here at DFW. One, they don't. Not only do they not actually play in the city of Dallas, they play in Arlington, and in fact, they're currently playing in the baseball stadium that the Texas Rangers just abandoned in favor of their big roofed country club stadium that they're opening this April. So, and that all those stadiums, they're right across the street from where the Dallas Cowboys play. So just imagine that in the city of Arlington, Texas, you've got the big, huge Death Star Stadium for the Dallas Cowboys, and then within just another block of it, you've got that ginormous roofed baseball stadium the Rangers just built, and then you've got a third baseball stadium that's currently now home to the XFL football team, and coming this summer, a minor league soccer team in North Texas SC that I believe is the development club for FC Dallas. Mainly concern I'm
oh yeah,
having here is that regardless of whether or not there's a team playing in it, the Texas Rangers club themselves, they still, as part of the deal they signed with the city for the new stadium, they hold first rights on whether or not that old ballpark stays or gets torn down. So I'm saying, even though there are currently two tenants now playing in that place, the original plan was supposedly to turn that thing into some type of shopping mall. I say it's just a matter of time before the Bob Simpson and Ray Davis make the decision that they want more parking or they want something else, and they're going to issue the ultimatum that no, that ballpark's being torn down, and whoever is currently a tenant of that place is going to be left high and dry, having to hopefully move to the Cotton Bowl or someplace. If there's a number of other XFL teams that might be in a similar situation to that, that could be a problem with the long-term future of this league. That's the number one concern I would have, at least at this point.
well, yeah. I think that's a big issue about stadiums and where they to play. Personally, I have no idea why they have. If they wanted to do two teams in Houston, no, in Dallas, they shouldn't. I honestly don't think they should have had a Houston team. They should have San Antonio team. And personally, I'm still not surprised. They should have. I think they should have just put like the Dallas Renegades like in maybe New Mexico, something like that, or
Yeah,
somewhere.
They made a good choice in giving St. Louis a club. I'll give them that much. But yeah,
yes.
I would have gone with San Antonio, definitely San Diego. They probably should have gone there and taken full advantage of how much displeased that city had from their team packing up and moving to Los Angeles. I'm trying to remember where the other team. Let me double check. Bring up the other list of where all the XFL clubs are, because I'm not a huge haven't been a huge follower of it just yet.
LA Wildcats, New York Guardians, St. Louis Battlehawks, Seattle Dragons, Tampa Bay Vipers, DC Defenders, Dallas Renegades, and the Houston Roughnecks.
Yeah.
Which I'm like, there are so many places that I don't think they should have gone. Seattle is I don't think Seattle needs one, since the Seattle Seahawks are pretty good for the most part. Injuries and everything else, but they still have a consistent ball club.
Yeah.
And they're gonna have a hockey team there, so I don't think they need a good place there to do it. LA, I didn't like the LA thing when it was announced. I still don't like it because LA has two football teams. I know they're both mediocre, but heck, they can have a new stadium there, and they're gonna show a lot more that type of I'm like, but
yeah, I'm looking at this. I didn't notice this, but I don't think. Yeah, there's 8 clubs. Every one of them is in an NFL market. I realized it was that bad. Like, maybe there was gun shy over supposedly how poor the other things in there, but yeah, I probably would have been with them going. Probably should have suggested they go to Memphis, perhaps, or into Birmingham or Portland or any club that doesn't have an NFL. That was the two things. I think UNA Tree brought this up when he made his video of the new XFL back when it was first announced. That the two best things I think the XFL can do for hopefully long-term success is, one, try to sell itself to markets that don't have the NFL. Haven't done that so far. I wouldn't be surprised then that if they do get a second season, you might see some relocations going on there. We'll wait and see on that. The other thing is, like I said, go after the young players that are in the NFL won't touch because they're not 3 years removed from high school yet. In other words, give younger talent the opportunity to play elsewhere other than just in college. Now, I'm hearing so far, they're not going to go after players just out of high school, but maybe they might pursue players after 1 year, which still is something for what that's worth.
Well, yeah, and I think that when you look at the entire situation of the XFL, and I'm just looking at this and I'm like, well, maybe the best way to really do this is probably move some teams. I will say, you know what, LA Wildcats and the New York Guardians, they're major markets, and I get it. You need to have these LA and New York representation. I will live with that, but the two Texas teams, I would say move Dallas Renegades or Houston Roughnecks to San Antonio, and move one to Memphis. I think that would make things a little bit better, and have the I think the Seattle Sea Dragons, and move that to San Diego.
Perhaps.
That would be my personal opinion. But go back to the DC Defenders and such. A reason why the team is getting so much love. And the reason why is because not only that, because they were, again, a new codependent. They struggled in the first part of the game. They struggled, but they got better and they won the game. They won in convincing fashion, and they drew about like 17,000 in that 20,000 seat stadium, which is really good.
Yeah.
And I hope that this will continue to grow. And I'm thinking about actually going to a couple games. Actually,
I myself,
the tickets are cheap too.
Yeah, I myself said if I could find a way, I've said this stuff. It's gonna be like 2-3 weeks before the Renegades have another home game. I think it's the first Sunday in March that they'll be back there at Globe Life Park in Arlington. But I said this, especially if I could find a way to go get into Arlington without driving and paying for parking, which is not easy in the slightest. And I've made some videos on how bad Arlington is in that department there, a subject for another time. But especially if I can find a way to do it, I might just check out one of those games. Because if nothing else, I will say this. Even though, as I've said before, I am not a huge fan of American football, I will pull for any type of smaller league that would provide people with more options, and especially not just an option against a competitor to the NFL, but especially a competitor to college football. That's going to, like I've said, with all the problems going on within the NCAA right now, and people's complaints about how much money the NCAA makes off of athletes, with how relatively little the athletes themselves get as compensation for that, I am still an advocate of college athletes should not be actually paid stipends or salaries, but they should be allowed an option of playing professionally somewhere, even if they're maybe not technically ready for the big leagues. As a baseball guy, it works on that level. We have so many minor league baseball clubs, and yeah, that's an issue going on right now with what Rob Manfred's trying to do there, but that's another subject for another time. But the fact of the matter is that the professional minor league system in baseball and in hockey, your sport, has worked for so many years. It's kind of frustrating to see not just American football, but basketball as well, not have that structure. And they've essentially allowed the NCAA to hold a monopoly over, or hegemony, whatever you want to call it. Maybe it technically is more of a monopoly now, over the development of young talent in those sports, in a type of indentured servitude, for lack of a better term. My apologies if that seems a bit extreme, but just the fact that if we could have actual professional minor league football and basketball in this country, that's something I'm all in favor of, and that more than anything else is why I do hope that something like the XFL can find a way to succeed.
I do hope so. But the one thing I worry about is that the NCAA will probably not want that thing muscle into the action because again, the NCAA, it is a institution, and it is something that people look into like, okay, this is important. This is the the college and everything else that connects to people. That's the thing, and that's how I don't know how the XFL, regardless of that, are going to get young people into it. But I think at the end of the day, they will still, probably will choose, will probably choose the NCAA because again, it's so baked in. We talked about this and such. Is that it's all baked in. It's baked in the mindset of the country. It's baked in. It sucks.
It's definitely a problem, and perhaps a much longer term subject, maybe for another time, that we might discuss in length another one of these days. But definitely great to have you on here, Duke. Definitely wanted to get your thoughts on the XFL and its possibilities going forward. I don't think DC and Dallas face each other this season. Maybe one day. Maybe one day we could go to something together on that, hopefully.
Oh, yes. Besides, I think, like I said, if the DC doesn't continue to win, and honestly, it'd be great if they actually win their first XFL championship. It'd be great. It will just, make me happy because more people will slowly but surely fade away to, forget about the days. It will be just like how it's be just basically like the DCU treats Justice League. It's like, it's there, it's happened, but we're moving on.
Always great talking to you, Duke.